Today we're going to talk a little bit about electronic messages, especially with emails and memos and a lot of the new technology that is out. And especially those of you that are getting ready to graduate here in the next couple of semesters. By the time you start work until the time you retire, we can only imagine how technology is going to change the workforce. I know when I started working at a hospital, the technology was so small compared to how it is now. I had to do some cost analysis on some mobile mammography units, and actually had to do it the old way with a calculator and pen and paper. Now you can throw some numbers in and get some bar charts and pie charts at the tip of your finger. So technology has helped us a lot in healthcare and in business, and especially for those of you that are going to be entrepreneurs. Technology is at your fingertips. Now we need to learn how to use technology to our benefit. And the past few chapters that we've talked about, we've discussed and practiced how to revise, how to prepare memos, letters. And now we're going to talk about the memos and the emails, because especially with emails, we all use email. But we got to remember, we use email different in business than we do at home. So let's get a start. What we're seeing in the future is more companies, large and small, are going for paperless work, and it's good and it's bad. Does that mean that there is not going to be any paper at all in your office? Well, of course not. You can go into any office now and you still see paper, but you don't see the rooms that have stacks and stacks of paper and all these different file cabinets. Now we can use our own folders and put the folders and organize them neatly in our computers. And even if we do have printouts, we always have a copy that is online, and vice versa. And with technology that we have with external hard drives and jump drives, we are able to keep copies and carbon copies when we send emails, and send a carbon copy to our supervisor. There's all these different types of technology that we're going to be using. So what does that mean for us? Well, we've got different networks that you're going to be set up with whenever you go into the workforce, to the work field, and each company are going to have their own policies. We're going to have policies when it comes to sending emails. How many emails do you send? Can you send too many? Well, we'll discuss this here in a few minutes. So let's start off by talking about our emails. Our previous chapter, we talked about conducting and organizing and writing, and now we're going to put this all together, especially when it comes to emails and memos. Are companies still using memos? Yes. Emails are probably used more than memos, but memos are still important. And your chapter does an awesome job on describing the difference between memos and emails. I'd like to really concentrate more on emails, because we've got some students in our classes from our different colleges that are majoring in business, majoring in accounting, majoring in office technology, a lot of different majors. So let's look at the email itself and the subject line. Good rules of thumb is the subject line should be upper and lowercase. You never want to use all uppercase, like you're shouting, more nonverbal, or all lowercase, which might let the reader think it's not important. So you want to have a good balance between the two. Last chapter we talked about direct and indirect openings. In emails, we would rather them be direct. In other words, we want you to get right to the subject. Because emails aren't supposed to be 3, 4, 5, 6 pages. Emails are supposed to be concise. So whatever the subject is, whatever the problem that you're wanting to address, you want to get right straight to it. And when you're addressing the person in the email, you want to use their full name. You want to put the to, with their full name. And you want to make it personal. Don't make it so professional. We don't want the $1 million words. In best regards, thus. We don't want to use that. We want to make these type of presentations personal, because these are people that may be down the hallway, maybe on another floor. Your organization may have different buildings that you're communicating with, so you wouldn't talk like that with them face to face. Now, does emails, are they better than face to face communication? No. There's nothing better than face to face communication. That's still the best, because you can show empathy through face to face. You can show excitement, encouragement. But many times face-to-face is not available. So email is still a somewhat rich type of media, and this is a type of channel that we can use. So if we do this with our subject lines and then we jump right into the body, we want to get to the point that we're trying to make, and there's some little etiquette that a lot of people are starting to talk about. And there's a neat book about email and computer etiquette. And one of the vice presidents at one of our local hospitals was telling me, he said what he tells a lot of his staff is, if you're sending an email to a person and you say, we've got a meeting at 2 o'clock, please make sure that you show up with your requests and your presentations. I hope to see everyone there. Well, he said you shouldn't have to respond back, okay, or thanks, or, yep, I'll be there. He said if you do those type of response, and he was telling me, he said that he gets close to 75 emails a day. And if everybody would respond, okay, thanks, he said that just shoots that number up to 300 and 400 emails a day. He said, I can't possibly go through those. So these are things that we need to consider. It's not like we're emailing our brother or our sister. This is professional. So there are some times that you're going to need to reply, other times that you won't need to reply. And more companies are starting to put this into their standard operating procedures. So these are things that you will be trained on. And for those of you that are entrepreneurs, these are some things that you will want to keep in mind to tell your employees. Another thing that's important when it comes to emails, more so emails than memos, don't send anything that you will regret. The one thing when it comes to emails is there forever. In the old days, if there was some incriminating evidence and it was on a piece of paper, if you destroyed that piece of paper, unless they made carbon copies, you destroyed the evidence. But not so much today. Once something is out on email or once something is out on Facebook, it's out there forever. And when it comes to Facebook, a lot of employers are urging their employees to watch what you put out on Facebook. Watch the pictures that you put out, especially when you're going for interviews. I used to have a couple of people in human resources from one of our local hospitals speak to one of my classes, in session classes, and that person said, whenever you're applying for a job, we start looking through your Facebook accounts, and we try to find friends that are friends with you in your Facebook accounts. And he said, we're going to look at some of the pictures, we're going to look at some of your posts, and if you have some things that may not seem professional, if you had a wild party that weekend before, then they're going to keep that in mind when it comes to the selection process. So the same thing can be said when it comes to emails. If you're angry and you send an email out, remember that email is out there forever. So be professional, be courteous, and be prepared whenever you're sending out something. You don't want to send out anything that you will regret later. An email is not always appropriate for breaking bad news. That's something that, if possible, if it's people that you're working with, you may want to meet with them face to face. And use proper English. Remember, we said in emails, professionalism, you want to be professional, but you don't want to use them, we call them the quote-unquote $1,000,000 words. You want to speak eloquently, plainly in your emails, but you don't want to speak like scholars. So keep the emails and the memos in a nice manner, but keep them neat. You don't want them to be sloppy. You want your train of thought to be direct. Get right to the point, and then have an opening, closing, and then send the email. You don't want it to just to ramble on. And the book also, or especially our chapter, talked a lot about instant messaging and things that I really want you to look at is the blogs and blog podcasts. These are really something that you're going to be dealing with a lot in the next 10 years. This is things that not only are large business industries using, but small companies are doing these as well. It's a good way to get your product, to get your thought, to get your business out by using these programs. And there's some programs that are free. Other programs are not that expensive to use. But now where we have instant messaging, there's some theories out there saying that maybe within 15 years, instant messaging may take the place of emails. Well, I don't know. What do you think? And blogs and podcasts, these are things that you can do from your home. The one thing about technology that we have, it's actually made us work longer. Because with all these types of instant messaging and emails, used to, if you were sick, you were sent home from work, and there were many times you didn't do any work until you were well. Now a lot of employers are sending you home if you're sick, but you still do some work on the computer at home. So many times we take our work home with us. This is what we're seeing with technology. Have any of you used Skype? A lot of companies now are using Skype for their interviews. Many companies are doing this. Saves them time, saves them money. It may save you time. You don't have to get in the car and drive all the way down for one of the interviews. And especially companies that are doing 2 and 3 different interviews for one position. Skype is becoming very popular with interviewing. And finally, networking. I would really like for you to read a little bit in our chapter about the networking, especially the RSS feeds. But networking, we don't have to use the old Rolodex anymore. The picture that you see there on the left-hand side of the screen, that was our contacts. Now we have all these different programs to where you can make professional contacts. Email, you can make professional contacts. I have my own folders in my email folders of important contacts from different industries, different professors from different universities. So technology is not only helping us at our work, it's helping us network with other people. Maybe there's another position that you're interested in. That's where technology comes into play. But remember what we said just a few minutes ago. Whenever you're sending emails or you're putting things out on Facebook, you want to be careful what you put out, because this could also go through your networking feeds. So technology is great, and technology is something that we are embracing, and especially those of you with your generation that grew up with technology. My generation grew up with technology, but not as much as most of you. It's awesome. It's great. It can make our life easier, and it can make our life harder. But when we're using this technology, and especially from what we're talking about in this chapter, electronic and digital media and messaging, this is where it still goes back to the old-fashioned way, us being able to get our point, and to get our point across professionally, get our point across through email. A lot of times that's going to be the only way we're going to be able to communicate. So the chapter that we talked about right before this particular section, now we're putting them both together. The way that you conduct your writing. Okay, so if you haven't read the chapter yet, go ahead and read the chapter, and we'll continue this discussion later. Thank you very much.